What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Flybox Talk Cities, the podcast based around our beloved city building simulation, City Skylines. My name is Flybox, but I am not here alone. With me today is the one and only Pilot Build Cities. Hello, welcome to the show.
Hey, Livevox, thanks for having me. Yeah, super excited to be joining you today. This is awesome.
100%. Thanks for making the time. Please tell us a few words about yourself.
All right, yeah, so I'm Pilot Build Cities, as some people may know or may, may not know. City Skylines 1 and 2 player and content creator, and also airline pilot by day.
That is really awesome, and we will get into that a bit later, but first, let's talk about City Skylines. So when did you first hear about the game, and was there anything or anybody that inspired you to start playing it?
Yeah, so I actually kind of just stumbled across it, to be honest. In 2020, obviously COVID lockdowns, wasn't a lot of demand for flying, so I bought my first console after being a PC gamer for a long time in my high school days. Shout out to RuneScape. And yeah, I had bought the Xbox Game Pass as well, and always enjoyed simulation games. And obviously, I didn't have a job at the point that time, so. Money wise, it was free on Game Pass. So I was like, oh, this looks like fun. Like, I'll kind of just dabble into it. The idea of a city builder was pretty appealing to me, to be honest. And yeah, I think that's like one thing I kind of share with Joy in terms of like, I always wanted to build cities that like kind of resembled how I thought they should be. So yeah, it was definitely kind of something I just sort of stumbled into, but then kind of stayed into it. So.
Nice. And yeah, I right, the pandemic. I totally like you couldn't fly then, right? That's like wow. I totally forgot I forgot about that, or just like put it in the back of my mind. And then you stumbled upon the game. That's really cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was for me it was like I got pushed into it basically because I had a coworker. He was like, because I was never, and I'm sorry, the regular audience, you heard the story a hundred times, but the I'm not really a simulation game player. Like I don't really like the genre that much. And so a coworker came up and he was like, yo, there's this amazing city builder. It's a simulation game. It's a City Skylines. I'm like, yeah, okay. Fine. Thanks for telling me. He's like, you got to check it out. It's so awesome. I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe. Because I was like, simulation, it's not for me anyway. I don't need to check it out. And he just kept pushing me. He's like, yo, check it out. Watch a video. You're going to love it. I'm like, fine, just I'll watch a video so you'll leave me alone, basically. Very nice, very nice person. My work bestie, basically. So,
Oh,
and
nice.
I watched a video, and the first video I saw, I think, was from a German creator, and it was like, and they just like kind of, I don't know, it was a bit of an odd building site. I don't even remember who it was, honestly. And then it's like and it didn't get me like sold, right? So the second video I saw then was from Imperial Jedi, and
Oh,
his
okay. Yeah.
yeah, his most viewed video, the how to start your city in back in 2017, I think it was 2018, something like that. I think it was
Right.
2017, or maybe yeah. And I instantly got hooked. Like I love,
Yeah.
I love Imperial Jedi, and just like I just watched because I stayed. I came there to watch some city skylines, but I stayed there for Jedi basically. But then I fell in love with cities as well, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
my god, this game seems so amazing. I have to play it, and it had just come out for consoles in 2017, I think. So
Oh,
and
okay. Yeah.
yeah, and so I was never a PC gamer, never. And I was always console. I had PlayStation, and i I was like, I need this game, and I just went online and I got a used copy for PlayStation for $20. So that
Oh,
was
nice.
like, yeah, that was like beginning of 2018, I think. And so there were some used copies. It just was $20, and yeah, ever since I'm hooked. But it's so interesting that just I just got pushed into it because like, and to this day I've never the simulation game genre is not for me, actually. But yeah, but I love cities. That's the good thing about cities. It's not, you
Yeah.
don't have to, like, you can just build stuff. It doesn't have to be the simulation game, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, it really kind of like hooks you. And like some of the other simulation games I had played were obviously like The Sims and then of course Microsoft Flight Simulator. But yeah, I think Cities is the one game for like me that I haven't Like it's been 4 years now, basically. I think, yeah, probably at this point, and I still haven't been able to put it down. Like I took little breaks here and there before I got into content creating, but yeah, I can't stop.
It is addicting. 100% agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was your first playing experience like? And is there anything special that you remember from your first time playing?
Um, I think the beginning was challenging. Like I'm trying to remember back to that time, but I think part of it being pandemic, it's a little blocked from my memory. But
Fair.
yeah, it was my build was all over the place. Like I didn't know anything about roadway networks or city planning, so a lot of it was just like random zoning, and like I think I almost killed off the first little bit of my city because I didn't know about the pollution mechanics that well
Oh,
either. So yeah, so it was a little messy to begin with, but yeah, it was still a good way to sort of like I think exercise that part of your brain of like thinking, problem solving. I mean, that's a lot of stuff I do in my job day to day as it is, but yeah, it was just like kind of like almost like a puzzle that you could like kind of mess up and like put the pieces together badly and then be like, you know what, actually like I can take this apart and like fix it and that kind of stuff. I did, start a new one after my original city, but I've always kept a copy of it on my Xbox just to kind of go back and, even I think I referenced in one of my videos a while ago to some people that like I was not was not an expert at the start. Like I think it's easy to get overwhelmed by city skylines, especially looking at some of the creators out there, but a lot of people have been playing this game for some since release. I think Few Candy's been playing it since release, and others for a very long time now. Me, 4 years. So there's, it doesn't happen overnight. That's for sure.
agreed. And yeah, I mean, I think that's for a lot of us that play the game, our first city. Like for me, it wasn't even a city. I think I got broke after the road layout because I was like, oh, building roads, let's build a bridge and then a tunnel, and it's like, oh, you have no money, and then it's like the city is like it tries to bail you out, or it bails you out once or twice even. I think I'm not sure. Gives you that little money boost when
Right.
you're completely broke, and it's like, oh, well, that's cool. And I just built more roads, and I just spent it everything, spent it all, and I never got a city going. But yeah, then watching more and more tutorials and getting into it, trying to or just getting a first city going was really special for me back then. Just like to be, hey, I got look at that, it's up and running. We're making money. That was such a cool little accomplishment there for me because I was like watching creators, mostly Jedi still, and I was like, oh my god, this is so epic. Of course, then mimicking the videos, doing just like watching and then just like building the same road design and just like being super happy that yeah, I could actually get a city going and it would run on its own. That was really really cool.
Yeah, I think watching other creators as well. Like to be honest too, before Cities, never really watched YouTube videos for like entertainment. Like again, it was kind of like I don't know, Cities kind of brought me back into like that gaming and like content and like YouTube watching world. And so like I think it might have either been Biffa in New Zealand or City Planner Plays in Verde Beach. I can't remember who was first, but I especially really liked watching City Planner because I like that idea of actually like building like a functioning city in the game. So that that really helped. My city's got a lot better after I started watching YouTubers. So
Yeah. That's interesting because for me, going or getting into YouTube as a form of entertainment, for me, it just happened like maybe a year before I got cities for myself. And then, of
Mhm.
course, my feed was only cities. But yeah, it's like I also got like very late in air quotes into the watching like gaming videos for entertainment stuff. So yeah. Also, I want to bounce off something that you just said about the puzzle. You scramble it and you can just take it apart and redo it to get it right or the way you want it to. And that's something I've always loved about City Skylines. Like you can build something and you look at it and you're like, wow, this is amazing. And you do something else and maybe a few days pass, maybe even a few weeks, and you go back to the initial area and you're like, I could have done that better. Not a problem. bulldoze and you can redo it. It's like that's something I really love. You can fix mistakes, or in air quotes mistakes. It doesn't have to be mistakes. Just like, I want to upgrade this, and you can, and that's something that's, to me, really really cool and fun in the game.
Yeah, and I find that too a little bit more with cities too, like how the game is designed. That I think in one of my areas of my city, I like completely rebuilt a part of it, and like I upped the zoning and changed some of the roadway layout and that kind of stuff. Because the city, like, it's a living thing, right? It starts to grow and change, and then and especially in the map I was working with first, like once you kind of get space constrained around water or whatever, and then you can start building up or whatever. So it's kind of,
Right.
yeah, like it's a living thing, basically, I guess, a city. Like you can kind of,
Hmm.
yeah, either whether you want to change it or you want to redevelop it or whatever. Like, yeah, I love doing that in both games, kind of going back and, being like, yeah, this area could use a little bit of a facelift. I mean, we've all done that before. So
Yeah, 100%.
yeah.
Do you have any like memorable moments or achievements from playing the game that you'd like to share?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a lot of it was just, I don't know if it's more just like what the game like means to me is what makes it more memorable. Is like a lot of the times, again, starting playing during the pandemic and kind of then getting into watching YouTubers. It was kind of like, I don't know. There was just something about the game where it was like it brought me so much joy, and like I could pass hours playing in my apartment because
Yeah.
I couldn't really do anything else. And I remember, I think it was the first Christmas that I had Cities, so probably 2020, and I couldn't go really travel to see my family because I live in a different city than all of them, and they were kind of in a zone that was a little more strict with a lot of their rules. So, and I think it was, I think the version of the Xbox version that I got had included the Christmas Carols update or whatever.
Oh.
And I remember just playing on, I think it was a Snowfall map too, because I'd finally gotten the Snowfall DLC because I was obsessed with, like, I need trams. Like, just
Yeah.
my city needed trams. And so, yeah, it was like you're playing and the Christmas music was playing. And it was like a way to sort of just really like lift my spirits in that time because I spent that Christmas, kind of just on my own. So I think that's probably something that I would like to say. Like, I don't know if it's necessarily something I did in the game, but I think it's more something like the game did for me in that situation. So
That's a fair point. Yeah, I totally understand that. Like, for me, I'd probably split it up because I have like memorable moments or achievements from the game. It's like my first city where I reached 100,000 residents. That's like something memorable. I will never forget that first city. That's like the first city that I actually got going with the help
mhm.
of tutorials and on PlayStation. That was really cool. A fun milestone, and also what you said, like what the game means to me, where it has got me, the amazing community and meeting all the people, watching these amazing content creators, being in collaborations, getting to work with Paradox Interactive was like, this is all from, it's like, this is because of City Skylines.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's like, to me, that's like, wow. And that's like, for me, is like, first of all, the first city that I broke 100,000 residents was really memorable, and of course, as you said, what the game means to me, what I have achieved, and that's, yeah, that's just something that's really epic for me.
Yeah. I think too, probably echoing that, like my first actual like functioning city, um, it might have even been that Snowfall map where I was like actually like I could build interchanges finally from, I think it was Imperator had a really good vanilla like trumpet design that I just ended up making a city full of trumpets, but like they worked really well. And I think someone else did, like, was it Overcharged Egg or I can't remember. Someone else did like really basic vanilla interchanges, and then obviously I was still playing on console there for the longest time too. So like anything vanilla wise really helps. So then I remember being really proud of that city because it was like, oh, I've got like good traffic flow and like I've got a highway network and I've got like all this stuff, and it actually felt like, yeah, I'd really like accomplished like what I wanted with the city. So
And everything works. Yes.
yeah.
Oh, I 100% understand that. That is something to be proud of, I think. Yeah, because it, when you first start the game, and we've all been there, like the very first like build that we tried was like, yeah, yeah, maybe we'll start over. Like the game, the game has these little advice and tips and built in, but I don't think you really like you just you learn by playing, but it really helps to watch some tutorials on the side, I think.
Yeah.
And it's also it's cool that you mentioned Imperator because like that's somebody that where I'm like, see, here I am. Well, first my first like 2 years were on console, but then switching to PC and learning about mods and learning the mods after I've for 2 years had learned about the game, which was really important. You know, first learn the base game and then dabble in mods because
Yeah.
I don't like if I imagine getting like trying to figure out the game plus trying to figure out how mods work, like oh my god. But so I was lucky to have that kind of split up, but then I'm like on PC and I got mods. I'm like, oh wow, this is super cool. And then I see people like Imperator who is doing these amazing vanilla things in City Skylines. I'm like, wow. And there's a lot of other people. There's so many builders that do amazing things in vanilla, and here I am sitting there with my mods, and I'm like, wow. My stuff doesn't look half as good as theirs. It's like the stuff you can do in vanilla is super amazing, which is good for the console players. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, vanilla takes a lot more patience, I think. So the people who have it, kudos to them for what they can do with vanilla.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's really cool that when you play vanilla, it's I mean, I like to go back to vanilla every once in a while, um,
Yeah.
because it's just like you have more of a challenge. Like you need to if you want to achieve things, you need to really think and like, okay, so I'm restricted with what I can do. Let's get creative, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
So you switched to PC eventually from Xbox, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think somewhere late 2021, I think, or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but
And so you also dabbled a little in the modded gameplay, but which do you
yes.
prefer, modded or vanilla?
Um, I guess I would probably have to say modded for CS1. Granted, when I say modded, like I mostly just use like quality of life mods. I never really dabbled too much into like the visual enhancements or asset sorry, not asset, but oh, what's the word I'm looking for? And now I'm forgetting it. But oh, game altering, that's what it was. Yeah, where they really changed the mechanics of the game. Like
Right.
so yeah, or anything like crazy like procedural objects, that mod still kind of scares me. Like I thought about trying to
Same.
dabble into it. Yeah, I know some people are like, it's not that bad. I'm like, no, I don't know. Like it looks really cool. I like some of the functions on it that I think I'd be interested, but yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother story.
Mm,
When it comes to Cities 2, like I just started modding obviously because it just got released. But I think something you said about Cities 1, like vanilla, really is something I felt when the game got released, like Cities 2, that is, that it was kind of nice not to have modding off right off the bat because you really do get to learn the game first. I found when I switched from like Cities 1 vanilla on Xbox to Cities 1 straight into modding on PC, there was still a little bit of like confusion because I think I just grabbed someone's like mod list off of Steam. It might have been Few Candy or someone, and just like started like messing around with her or whatever. But I was like, I don't know what half these mods do. Like,
yeah.
I don't know what I'm changing in the game. And then it was like I didn't actually know what was like because the PC version of City Skylines 1 is a lot different than console 2, I find. So like I didn't know what was modded and what wasn't when it came to some of the controls as well. So yeah, I still like modding for the most part, but I actually really enjoyed playing Cities 2 vanilla for the last like 8 months or so. So
Oh yeah, that's fair. And I agree. Like if I go modded, I go lightly modded. Don't want to overdo it. Quality of life stuff is yeah, is it can be super important, but I shy away from procedural objects. For instance, what you mentioned, like to this day, I haven't
yeah,
touched it once. So I've no game altering stuff, and visually, I just usually go with the base game. What are they called? Like color corrections. There's some color corrections that were in an update,
Yeah.
in one of the final updates, and I just usually play around with those and see, okay, what looks best, and that's it. I don't really go with the visual enhancement stuff. I mean, you can make this like, wow, you can make this game look so realistic. I've seen like screenshots of Cities 1. It's like, oh my god, just with mods and like the camera visual type mods, it's
Yeah.
amazing what you can do. It's like, wow, I mind blown, right? Mind blown.
Yeah, and I think too, like if we include like asset mods in there as well, like I mean, for Cities One, in its final state, last year, I found like it was really loaded with assets at that point. So actually, kind of, for the most part, I mean, I use a lot, a lot of the trees and the props, I think, from the workshop, and a few select modders like their asset packs. But I found even too, like a lot of the vanilla assets were pretty like they were enough for what I needed to do or whatever. I always have to remind myself though that I can't just make a city full of Brooklyns and Queens because of those assets. But like, if I could, I would. But yeah, it would kind of get a little repetitive after a while. So
That's a fair point. Yeah, and again, I agree with you again. I usually don't really go asset shopping on the workshop. Like I think there's so much stuff in vanilla. Like I don't even sometimes I don't even have time, or I don't even have like the variety mindset to place everything that's from vanilla. So why would I go out of my way to get even more stuff? and I'm
yeah,
and I'm like I don't really do like themed cities where I'm like, oh, we're gonna rebuild Japan, or like where I where I would
right.
really need like assets that are only from that region, or or from that like season, for instance. Like that's something I usually don't do unless it's for like some collab thing or something. And
Yeah,
yeah, because I just think there's in vanilla there's so much stuff, and I never like in my how do I say, when I play the game, I never end up using, like, always there's always something that I find in vanilla. I'm like, oh my god, right, there's this too, and we can place all of this, and I was like, there's so much stuff. Because yeah, over the 8 years or 9 years, what is it, like, when they stopped the updates, 8 years I think, eight and a
yeah,
half
something like
years, yeah, something. There was like they had so many updates and so much cool stuff in there. Yeah, for me personally, it's enough. So I don't typically go asset shopping unless it's for like a themed like collaboration or something.
Yeah, I find too, there's often, like you said, like I come across like a building and I'm like, this is in the game. I'm like, is this, did I take this from the workshop? I'm like, oh no, this is like vanilla game. I was like, well, where have you been hiding? Like, I just didn't even know this was
Yeah,
in there. Like, yeah, it's a bit wild. Like I always get them mixed up. Unique buildings in Cities One. There's some I'm like, I have never placed this before. How has this never made it into one of my cities?
right.
Like, it's just yeah, it's wild how many assets they, ended up including in there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah. So, Pilot, you mentioned that you're also only going with like quality of life mods. What are your top five mods of all time?
Yeah, I'd have to say I probably, especially for Cities 1, I say like Move It and Network Multi-Tool are big ones simply because of the probably some of the building mechanics. Move It's nice for just kind of getting buildings where you want them, and then Network Multi-Tool, I find just a lot of the, building interchanges or rail, a lot of that stuff
Yeah.
definitely is a
Yeah.
little nicer. It really cleans up roadway networks a lot of the time too. So I definitely favor those two for Cities One. The other one's probably Prop Line Tool and Find It, especially now that they've been added into Cities 2 as well. It's been like huge because I
Yeah.
cannot sit there and place each individual bush
Oh
for
my
like
God.
my hand hurts. I don't have that kind of time. Like I work full time, on top
Yeah.
of everything. So it's like I don't have time to spend an hour placing trees. Like um and I mean if I can cheat a little bit, maybe I'll just say the anarchies
Yeah.
plural for the last one, prop anarchy, tree anarchy, network and game and I don't know, the anarchies, the list goes on.
Anarchy.
But
We'll just say anarchy. Yeah.
yeah, there's a whole lot of anarchy going on in this game, but like yeah, I'd say those are probably the ones I use the most, for sure.
That's a really cool list. Yeah, 100%. Also, what's really interesting is if I think to like modded versus vanilla. It's interesting because when I do my live streams over on Twitch and we do like a modded build, and here I am playing the game and I'm so in the game, and because I've started Cities vanilla on console for like 2 years or 2.5 years, I always had that vanilla mindset. Like even when I played modded, I was still in the vanilla mindset. And so it's really funny that sometimes when I do modded builds and I just build city, and then I'm like, I just do some area and I build something, and then I glance over at chat and I'm like, why aren't you using a mod for that? I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like, oh, right. I don't know. I'm just doing roundabouts like the old fashioned way. Like I got roundabout
Oh
builder or
yeah.
whatever, you know? I'm like, oh my God, why? I just always try to do stuff vanilla. And, so, and that's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just interesting to me because I like mods, you know, especially you mentioned network multi-tool. That's an amazing mod. You can do so much stuff with it. But I forget. I just forget.
Yeah, that actually reminds me too sometimes of like when I'm building, especially yeah, as soon as you said roundabouts, I was like, I think I was building a roundabout one day in Cities 1. I think it was right before, and one of my builds anyways. I was building an interchange and I just like manually built the roundabout because I was like, well, I found it faster than like going into roundabout builder and trying to find the road I wanted to use. I was like, no, I can draw a quick little X and, curve road tool and
Yeah.
good to go. Because I was like, I can get it, sized a lot easier too, I think that way. Because then I can just kind of eyeball, "Oh, okay, yeah, I need at least like 6 units probably for this roundabout or seven, or I don't know." So yeah, that's a good point. That sometimes modding is good, but I still find vanilla can be a little faster anyways, or maybe we're just used to it. So
I guess yeah, but maybe a bit of both. Yeah, but it's always funny to see like my chat reactions. Like they're just like, he's got mods doing vanilla, shaking my head, you know, stuff like that. But it's all like fun and jokes, kind of. And I'm like, oh my God, so they're making fun of me, but I'm just like, I just literally forget. I'm not doing this on purpose, you know. I'm not doing it for the content. I'm just doing it because I forget about the mods sometimes. But I guess that's because of the getting started in cities in vanilla. But yeah, fun times for sure.
yeah, well, and sometimes too with modding, it's like you can do so many different things with different mods too, right? Like you don't always have to use one mod a specific way for something. Like when I did my collab with Joy, and her Fairstead city didn't have anarchy, and I was like, oh, like I don't know, can I build without anarchy? And I
Oh
was like, oh, hold on, like there's Move It. Like you can do a lot of stuff with Move It, especially in Cities 1 right now. So it was like really a good challenge to sort of like be like, okay, well, how can I do this without this mod or
mm,
whatever,
yeah.
right? So
So true. But first you're like, oh my God, can I even do this? I do know
yeah,
the feeling. Yeah.
panic.
Exactly. So you mentioned the collab with Joy Build Cities. How was your experience with? You've done a few collaborations, as far as I've seen. So how was your experience with collaborating in City Skylines?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, to be honest. Like the one with Joy, that was huge for me, especially being a small channel and having a bigger creator kind of approach you and be like, "Hey, I want to build in your city." I want to build in your city, and I want you to build something in my city. And it's like, oh, like wow, wow, I'm a
Yeah.
bit like type A perfectionist personality over here. So like, I'm always just kind of like, was that build good? Like, and then it does kind of well on YouTube. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. So what I did was was fine or whatever. So, but yeah, it was kind of a nice affirmation, I guess you could say, that at least I was heading in the right direction, and it really sort of expanded. Again, like that creativity and that sort of like challenge, like I was kind of talking about just a little bit earlier there, that like that Joy had a different mod list, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna like respect her mod list and not like add anything into it, and like let's just see how it goes. Like I'm so stuck in my mod list and my little world and how I build cities, and I was like, oh, let's like go into somebody else's city and like take a look around. And Joy just kind of gave me an area and was like, here, you can build here. And I was like, oh, okay, so like what I want to build, like what kind of, I did the airport there, of course, as most people know. And um,
Yeah.
yeah, it was actually a lot of fun. Like I just I spent like a lot of time to like test building. I think I test built it like 3 or 4 times before I even did the final video. and that kind of stuck because I was also a little stressed because I was like, oh, this is, a bigger creator. Like I felt like the not really the pressure was there, but I think I put the own pressure on myself to make sure that it was
Mm.
like pretty like top notch or whatever. And yeah, it was fun to like, you kind of mix up the audience a little bit. Like mine's a bit smaller, but a lot of people who maybe haven't seen Joy and her channel and her build style, that's some exposure for her, and same for myself. And yeah, so I'm really enjoying it. I'm doing another one with Brad Plays Cities. We're doing a Cities 2 together, and instead of trading our own individual cities, we're kind of building one together, which I
Mm.
think is a lot of fun and good practice for the the Skyline 6 collab coming up as well. So yeah, it's a lot of fun to connect with the other creators and just see what other people do, because I think you can kind of learn a little bit from people and modify your build style or whatever. Like yeah, it's a really cool thing to do.
Yeah, that's so true. And I was about to say, yeah, you're in the collab in the Skyline 6 European Adventure, which
Yeah.
starts in a week. Super exciting times coming up. You're one of the guest builders. That's going to be really, really amazing. Yeah. And quick
Yeah.
side note for anybody watching or listening, City Skylines collaborations or multiplayer is what is essentially a save game pass around. That means one builder starts building on a map and passes that save to the next builder, which they in turn continue that build, or in the case of Pilot built cities and Joy built cities, the existing city was passed over and there was an area where the other builder was able to build, just in case anybody doesn't know how these collaborations typically work. And I think that's a really cool way in City Skylines that you can do that. And I also, what you said about, it's really cool to see what other people do, like to get to open another city. And just, I remember my first collab when I was invited by Zardis to be guest builder in the 5B1C, and
Mhm.
I remember just opening up that save, and I think I just took like 20 minutes or maybe even half an hour just flying around the city and checking out all the areas of the builders, because it was like, for me, it was like, oh my God, you could see the distinct style of every builder. And then it just like came together on one map. It was so fun to see, and so really, really cool to be a part of that. So yeah, I do enjoy collaborations 100%.
Yeah, and there's a lot of fun behind the scenes too for passing cities around of trying to make the saves load as well. Like Joy and I were very thrilled to see that our attempt at me giving her Wintercrest and her passing me Fairstead, that I think it took me one load only because her mod list was pretty light, and I think I think she had it going by like the second load in because some assets got missed from the mod list. So I was
Yeah.
like, I was impressed. I was like, nice, because I've heard some horror stories of trying to pass them around. So
Yeah,
yeah,
especially with a mod list that is like a massive, the more mods and assets you have, yeah, the more it's possible that you are not able to open the safe. So, or something is missing, something breaks or whatever. Yeah, that's very possible. So vanilla collabs are best. It's very
yeah.
easy. It's very easy to do.
Yeah, that's one good thing with the Cities 2 collab so far is we're just adding some mods in now, but for the most part, it's just you take the save game, you put it in the Google Drive, and the other person grabs it and keeps going, and it's like very like easy passing it back and forth. So yeah, keeping it simple is sometimes good for those.
Oh, yes, 100%. So, Pilot, I want to ask you about your content creation journey. How come, or when did you first think about creating content, starting your YouTube channel?
Yeah, I watched a lot of YouTubers along the way, and I really enjoyed what they were doing, and I think you kind of get to the point where like you start to think like, huh, could I do this? And it's a bit overwhelming at first because I kind of just like dove in and was like, oh, I got to get like channel branding and I've got to decide all these things, and you
Mm,
kind of fumble your way a little bit through, and yeah, I think kind of some of the reasons why I started was, as we mentioned earlier, aviation can be a bit up and down depending on, world economics or if there's another pandemic. And, we go from, 2019 was probably one of the biggest booming years for aviation. And then we dropped to zero demand like a full year later. So kind of
yeah.
like nice to have a hobby or a side hustle that's, kind of going on that, you can kind of lean into more if you need it. And I could have done something very on brand, like I could have done Flight Simulator or aviation games, but I think a lot of it was I wanted to find something that was like my niche, and I really love cities. It was a great creative outlet as well. And so I was like, well, I haven't seen any other pilot content creators who are playing City Skylines. So I was like, why don't I dive in and just see if I can bring my own sort of unique twist to it. Like I get to travel a lot, which is nice. So a lot of my
Right.
cities have little bits of inspired areas. One that's coming up, I'm trying to bring in some inspiration from my last trip to Brazil, which was a lot of fun. So, but yeah, kind of also with my job, I'm on the road a lot. So, um, the great thing about the community aspect of City Skylines is, when I do a live premiere or something like that, or we're just chatting on Discord, or, I'm in the west coast of Canada and you're, if I remember correctly, German, right? Like,
Yeah.
so,
Yes, in
you
Germany.
know, yeah, it's an opportunity to really sort of still have somewhat of a social life ongoing as well. Like, I love hanging out with everyone, watching, even other people's premieres, and then the chat gets going, and it's just a really fun time. So, and yeah, it's just something to do on my layovers as well. Like some of the places, depending on the length and where we're laying over, there's not a whole lot kind of going around the hotel. So if you're there for a while after you've slept, of course, you got to find something to do to pass the
Yeah.
time. So yeah, so a couple reasons there for sure.
That is really cool. And of course, with your job, you can get inspired from all over the world, I'm guessing, right? That's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I haven't quite touched every continent, but North America, now South America, finally, lots of Europe, tiny dabble in Asia as well. So it's really interesting to see, all these different places, and like, a lot of it I draw from Europe. When I'm doing public transit, I'm a really passionate about public transit, so I try and make cities with a lot of that. And from Japan, it was like, oh, kind of contrasting like old and new, and South America, like in Brazil, they've got some great like BRT, bus rapid transit lanes. They've got some really interesting roadway networks as well. So, yeah, it's really cool to kind of have that perspective. It's definitely a privilege to be able to do that.
Nice. And of course, I'm guessing as a pilot, you love to build the airports in city skylines, right?
I mean, I might be a little biased for that DLC being one of my favorites, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's a
So
good one.
that's I mean you did mention that with your profession you would flight simulator or something, but I mean there is this aviation aspect to city skylines as well with the airports. And if I might, and this, I'm sorry to say this, but I've just recently went in depth on the airports DLC because it was for me it was so complicated to get everything going with the runways and the taxiways, and everything is one way road, and you have to consider like everything with your like with this the airplane stands, and like I just couldn't wrap my brain around it for a really long time. And I was just like, okay, just put it on the side, sort of. So I never really thought about building an airport in my city, and not even the ones that you plop down. I kind of totally overlooked that fact that you can place airports. But then recently, or I guess a few months back, or I don't know, one of my, I think it's the Voxport City that I'm building on YouTube,
Mhm.
which is kind of on a hiatus right now because I haven't published a video on that in a long time. I just I was like, this place is like I had an area. I was like, this is perfect for an airport, right? This is just perfect. Okay, so I have to look at checked out a tutorial first, and then I went into the airports tab, and yeah, I mean, if you just look at it for 5 minutes and I have some patience, not like me, it's not too bad, and you can create some really cool designs, really cool airports.
It's a bit overwhelming, I think, for some people. I didn't realize, maybe I'm just a little I probably was a little naive to like how complicated it can be for some people, but I was like, just like, roadway networks was like something for me that I was like, I have no idea. For like a different creator like City Planner Plays, it's like, this is like next to like this is, that's what he does
Yeah, yeah.
or whatever. So yeah, different things for different people can be intimidating. So
Yeah, that's so true. But Pilot, you also do live streams on YouTube. And what are some of the advantages of live streaming compared to creating a video and vice versa?
yeah, I think I like live streaming for the sake of just hanging out, like I was kind of mentioning earlier, like when we're, building the city together. And often my videos are kind of my own vision for the city, and it can be hard to sort of get people to leave feedback or comments or suggestions. And I think sometimes people are maybe even just a little intimidated to leave a suggestion because you never know who. And on the internet, there's always that other person out there who might shoot down your idea. So at
Mm,
least in the lives, like you can kind of engage a little bit more with the audience, I find. And one of the other great advantages, especially with just my schedule sometimes, is lives are a little more easier to schedule in because you just have that one. I usually do 1 to 2 hour ish, hour and a half lives, and so it's a lot kind of easier to fit that into my day sometimes. A video can take quite a while depending on what I'm putting together. Sometimes it's 1 to 2 hours of test building first and a lot of
hmm
like, getting a little upset for clean language and closing the game for a little bit because what you're trying to do isn't working. And then once you finally get it figured out, then it's 2 to 3 hours of building again. And then after that, maybe 1 to 2 hours of editing, depending on what you have to do. And sometimes when I'm watching back, I'm like I didn't really like what I did there,
Oh.
or I was like, oh, I just you read it, watch it back, and you're like, oh, I spent 15 minutes to explaining to people how I built 2 roads, so maybe I should probably take that out. Where yeah, so I like the lives for just a little bit of like time management, and also like yeah, I like hanging out with everyone and just having a good laugh in the chats and building away. The one good thing though on the other side of video creation is it's a little more polished, so you can sort of like yeah, if you don't like something, you can edit it out, and no one saw you do that, and so you can just sort of be like, yeah, never mind, we'll sweep that under the rug, and try that again. And I like some of the editing side of videos too, to like, I think I did a walkthrough once on Cities 1 where I tried to tell like a little bit of a story of like someone moving out and going to university. And it was kind of a little inspired off of my own life. Granted, I've been graduated for a long time now, but yeah, and it was like, oh, you could kind of use like the music and the commentary to like build and tell a story and like invoke some emotions. So there's definitely like two different sides to like how I like to do my content creating. Like a lot of my videos, I think, are more geared towards, yeah, some of that, like telling a little bit of a story. Sometimes it's just basically like, hey, let's just build stuff together kind of thing. So yeah, you can also just get a lot more done in a video. Like I've been on a stream where it was like 45 minutes in, and I was like, oh, we've built like 3 roads and like 2 buildings. So if speed is your style, definitely live streaming. Like you got to be at that for 4 hours, and I just don't
Yeah.
have that kind of energy. So
It's so true. And I agree with everything you just said. It's the same for me. Like the live streams, it's just like a fun hangout, building stuff, talking, receiving feedback, ignoring feedback sometimes. But yeah, that's so true. And video, it's like, wow. Sometimes, as you said, it takes hours to record depending on what you do, what you have to prep. Like for me, with, I have family, 9 to 5, and I have to sometimes split up my recording into multiple days. And then
yeah,
comes the editing. And how do you want to do that? Do you want it more fast paced? Do you want flashy stuff on the screen? Do you want it more chill? It's like, wow, it's so much work versus you just like, oh yeah, we're gonna go live, and you just, boot up the stream and you talk for a bit and then you play the game and you like 2 hours and you're done. And you just like, okay, shutting it off, and okay, I'm going to bed now. It's like, but yeah, I mean, there's, if I would have to choose, like, I can't really choose what I like more, because I love the live streaming for hanging out with the people, getting that real life, that live feedback, but I also love the process of creating a video on YouTube, because the planning stages are fun, then the building itself is fun, and maybe switching up the ideas, like doing some other, maybe you want to, how do I want to say, like maybe you want to switch up your building style, or it's like, this is a special episode, we're going to do something completely different. And I also think that what you can do in a YouTube video wouldn't necessarily work on a live stream, and the other way around too. Like what works on a live stream wouldn't work on a video. What you said with, like, you can tell some amazing stories on video. Would it work on live stream? I don't know, because you always have that chat interaction. I mean, you could do it, but I think that is something that is better served for video format. For instance, like the storytelling.
Yeah, and I found too that like sometimes with the lives, like it was something that I actually liked doing a whole lot more than for like that community aspect. 'Cause I think that's a big thing in having a channel and being a content creator, is like sometimes if you're not engaged with people, like I think I finally got to know my audience a little bit better by doing some of the live streams, and like there's opportunities to do some pretty wild stuff. We did a live where all we did was try and start a city with just airports, and could we move, like I built like a residential area, and it was like, okay, well, the residents can only get to their jobs in the commercial industrial zones by like taking a plane or whatever, and see is like, can we actually build like a functioning city and cities too? But yeah, like for a video, I was like, I don't think that would ever really work. Yeah, I think that's kind of echoing what you said with the lives, is some of the stuff you can do in a live, you just can't do that in a video. And it's kind of fun to just, do those crazy things. Like we're just going to mess around for an hour and a half and see what happens.
Exactly. And hey, if push comes to shove, you can always take that VOD and edit it down to create a video. I mean, that's an option too, right? Although, in my experience, that doesn't work too well. Getting like stream highlights. But anyway, other topic. Let's go into, since we already mentioned City Skylines 2, let's talk about the sequel to our beloved city building simulation. Let me know, Pilot, how did you experience that amazing announcement trailer for City Skylines 2, and what went through your mind when you were watching it?
Yeah, I'd have to say, I think the shock was like, it was like shocking initially. Like, to put it into perspective, I probably was like that meme with Patrick from SpongeBob, where he's just kind of sitting there like mouth wide open, like eyes just like totally shook, because it was so unexpected. Like people had been talking about their CS2 wish list for a while, and it's like, I don't know if we know if it's going to come. Obviously later on we found out that some of them did know it was coming, but it was just kind of like, we had just, what was it? I guess the announcement came shortly on the heels of the plaza and promenades and like sports venues and like all these really big updates to Cities 1. So it was kind of like out of left field. All of a sudden, like Cities 2 is coming and it's going to be like this year. And you're like, wait, what? Like we just, you just put out these massive amounts of, I think the last one was Africa in miniature, like on that World Tour Pass thing that ended in the spring. And then like a month later, it was like Cities 2 coming this year. And you're like, huh?
Yeah.
And so that announcement trailer, like my brother sent it to me. I think it was announced at some Xbox event or something. I don't
Xbox
quite remember.
Showcase something,
Yeah, and I was just like sitting there staring at, like watching that video being like, oh my goodness. And then everyone starts like breaking it down. It was just like what is this? Like, wow, like this engine looks so crazy. Like I knew it wasn't, gameplay, but it was like, what are they going to do with it? Like there was so much curiosity. It was just like that whole marketing campaign. If I could even plug into like the the first gameplay trailer, it was like, I was like, oh my goodness, like this is insane, like it's coming this year. And like kudos to them. Like I know it's been mentioned a lot of times, even in the podcast you did with the Skylines 6, like that was a phenomenal trailer. Like Joy, I was in tears because I was just like, oh my gosh, I am so ready to build cities in this game. So
it was like wow. Again, thinking back to that trailer, It was really amazing, and I'm a sucker for trailers. I love, like, when new movies come out. I try to watch every piece of footage I can, and I
Yep.
just love getting the suspense built up and the hype for the final product. And again, the trailer for the announcement trailer for Cities 2 was just like, I'm lucky. I was in the early access group. I knew that announcement was coming, but I didn't know what. So I didn't see the trailer beforehand. And
Right.
I think Joy and I, we did a reaction even. We watched it together,
Oh,
and
wow.
I was like, yeah, we have, and it was just, yeah, I think I cried too because it was so epic. And I couldn't believe that this amazing game is getting a sequel. Like, when I first heard the news on, like, Discord, I was like, what?
Yeah.
This can't be, like, what? How
Yeah.
are you doing? Like, I never, like, honestly, I never thought that they would make a sequel. I did not think that. I just thought, we got Cities 1, and that's the thing. It's a standalone game, period. I didn't ever think that there will be a sequel. So first time I heard that news, I was like, oh my God, are you seriously kidding me? I was at work. I checked my phone. There's a Discord. I'm like, what is it? I'm like, what happened? I couldn't, like, ugh. And then, yeah,
Yeah.
but I was also a person that broke down the trailer because I love doing, like, or watching trailer breakdowns anyway. And I think I have like 3 videos of me finding, here's 7 new details I found in this trailer. And I mean, I delivered. It's not clickbait, right? So
Yeah.
if anybody goes back on my channel and sees that, there's actually more details that I found, and some of them actually came true. So I did find stuff in the trailer. I mean, probably a coincidence that I found some things, and I said that because there was like these there was when it was flying through the city, there was like this road in like a back alley. It had bollards on one side, and then the other road had like trees. And I was like, oh, what if you can choose? What if you can choose what you place on the roads? And that's what we actually got. I think it's something
Yeah.
in the lines of that. And I didn't know that, but I like, that's how good I was at breaking down the trailer. But yeah,
Yeah. And I,
with the engine and everything, it looks super amazing.
yeah. And I think that all got released like even before I hadn't even thought about creating a channel at that point too. So it's just like, I mean, I've been hemming and hawing for a little bit,
Hmm.
if I was honest, but I was also in the middle of I had just changed jobs, so it was kind of like in that timing with the new game, I was just like, oh, this is like really great, and like by the time it comes out, like I'm gonna be settled in my new job and everything, and so yeah, it was just like, I don't know, I found the timing really good. Like I think for me too, again, like I'm so passionate about cities and the game and the community and a lot of the stuff that like even I was kind of going through a few life challenges, even though I was changing jobs and it was for the better and that kind of stuff. And so to see we were getting like a sequel to the game I loved so much at another time where life was kind of challenging for me, I was like, wow, Colossal Order, you've got like good timing of coming into my
Yeah.
life.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool. That
Yeah.
it worked out. Like, in air quote, it worked out. Like, that's really amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your very first playing experience, or like your initial impressions when you opened Cities 2 for the first time?
Yeah, I had kind of at that point had launched my channel, so I was heavily consuming a lot of Cities 2 content at that point from a lot of the other creators because yeah, obviously not having early access or anything like that, like that was the only way to learn about the game. So, but it was still like the first time opening it up.
Right.
It was challenging, I think, at first because I didn't even know if I was still gonna get the game. I didn't have a very high end PC. There was a lot of talk about obviously leading up to the game about what it was gonna be like, but at the same time, I was still very, very excited. And as soon as I opened it, I was like, "Oh my goodness! Like this is great!" Like until some of the issues came to light, obviously, but that initial impression was just like I was so excited. The maps were a bit difficult. When I settled on the Mountain Valley map, it was like, okay, like I can work with this, and it still has some challenging terrain. But I was just like, the first one I tried to build on, I can't remember the name of the map because I stopped the city pretty fast. I was like, I cannot terraform again right now. But building that vanilla skill, I think I've gotten a lot better at terraforming now. But yeah, I think it was just like I don't know. I loaded into the game and it was just happened to be the song that was playing on the radio. And again, like I'm such a sucker for like good music and emotions or whatever. And so the radio was playing and it was really good. I think I mentioned it in like this diary video I did on my own channel that was like suburbia or something. It was just like I had this like feeling of like this is the start of something new and exciting, and like so I dove right in and was like I didn't even plan on putting a video out on like day one, and then I think I was up like super late till like 11 o'clock at night, like editing my first like video of me just like fumbling my way through the game. Like, yeah, it's my first city. I have no idea what's going on,
Right.
but like, here we go. Let's just learn it together. Like, 'cause that's all I can do.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a good concept too. Let's learn it together. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what I've been doing with Cities 2 is fumbling through it with everyone else because, yeah, I didn't, I think it was City Planner Plays says, oh, this is me starting my first city after release with 150 hours of gameplay. And I was like, I'm starting my first city with 3 hours of
Yeah.
gameplay. Let's see how this goes. And yeah, I fumbled a lot of stuff. Like, I think I even admitted it in a few videos. I was like, I didn't know this mechanic works like that. Or I was going to build something and then like partway through the build I was like, oh, this is not progressing how I thought it was, so I kind of just had to like quietly dance away from it and into something else. And yeah, so
Yeah, I understand. What was it that stood out to you the most in the game?
um I think the difference between the two in like vanilla, like a lot of the way that the base game is designed I found was a lot sort of um easier, like especially when it came to the road tools, which I think people
Hmm.
mention a lot, but
Yeah.
like it made building roads and like interchanges like what would be probably like an hour to like try and build, especially in vanilla on the console, like a nice trumpet or without any practice, right? Like pretty soon like you've just got like this road, like the nodes aren't as picky, like you're not fumbling around, you're not trying to like anarchy stuff in and then adjust it with node controller. Oh, sorry. Like um yeah, you're not trying to adjust it with no controller and then do the intersection marking tools. Like a lot of that stuff that was kind of built into the base game. Like it wasn't quite where I had hoped it would have been with some stuff, but I think, yeah, like and other small things like loading into the game, like, it used to take like 3 minutes to load my modded game and we were in within like 30 seconds
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think that probably was like the biggest thing that was just like, and for me, I really liked the seasons mechanic, and I remember playing and recording a video and just not even really realizing that my city was going into fall until like I just started building, and then I like remember like, and I decided to leave it in the video because I was like, sure, why not? Like just being like totally distracted and blown away, being like, oh my God, my city is turning into fall. Like look at the trees, the color is changing. Like, and it was so like subtle, and it was like these little things that kind of happened in the background of the game, and it was just like again, like for me, kind of liking that like living city and redeveloping and developing and building, and the city grows and changes. And I was just like totally blown away. I think the same thing happened in winter. I was like, oh my God, it's snowing. Like, especially in the mountain valley map, it's like the way the mechanic is designed. Like it was snowing in like this rural town that I built that was like up in the hills. So then I like happened to like just turn the camera at one point. I was like, oh, the little city, it's covered in snow. And I was like, oh, the rest of the city is getting snow now. Like, I'm just like, yeah, very distracted, like squirrel moment for sure.
Which is understandable, yeah. For me, the quick loading time, yeah, was one, but then
Yeah.
the road tools, I just like again, I have to go with the masses as well, with the
Yeah.
opinion of the masses. Like the road tools are, as you said, like build an interchange. You can do that in 2 minutes now. It's so intuitive and easy to do that. There are some things I think could have been done better, but I mean, every game like has that kind of thing where you're like, oh, this is amazing. And there's some stuff that could have been done better, but it's amazing. Right? And it's like compared to City Skylines 1, the road, it's like it's a whole new world. It's like it's
Yeah.
so amazing to just, yeah, you realize you don't need anarchy for, it's like it's very, you have so much like I want to say space, because it's like there's so much free roaming with the road tools. You can just, there so many possibilities. So that was something that stood out to me the most, definitely. And to this day, like I think the road tools are on point. They're on point.
Yeah, I have a big heart for the complex curve tool. It's just like it makes so much easier because I think in Cities 1 you basically would have either had to like, run a little network multi-tool there through there or really like turn off your snapping and like finagle a nice little like bended road in. But I find yeah, with like interchanges, it's just like, oh, like 2 clicks and you've got this really nice like curve off of an interchange into a highway. And I was like, how does this take so little time?
Yeah, that's true. That's really true. Pilot, what did you think about the game's release and the controversy that came along with that release?
Yeah, oh boy. It was challenging. Like, there was a lot of stuff that was said leading up to the release to the point where I almost didn't get the game, just because I was worried about the performance on my PC. And I was trying to kind of following along with like Colossal Order and seeing what they had to say with it. I found that Cities 1 in its final form was such a success that I had a lot of faith in them as a developer. Like I tried to sort of how do I put it? Not really block out, but just like, try and trust my gut a lot with my opinion of the game. I found it a little bit difficult to be excited because there was so much controversy around it, and a lot of times it was hard to kind of just sit there and be like, well, I actually like playing the game because, while a small number of people were very, I would say, kind of toxic with it, in terms of like they kind of just jumped down your throat right away. It was like I wasn't blind to the fact that there was issues with it,
Yeah.
but for me, I had spent the money on it, and so I was like, well, I'm going to try and get what I can out of this game, and so I think it's gotten a little bit better lately, just with I think they're finally hearing the community more. My own personal opinion, I wasn't totally surprised that they kind of pulled back there for a little bit because, again, that small vocal minority that was, sending death threats and just writing up on the forums like "F you guys, F this, F that," like all that kind of stuff. I was like, you're never really gonna get your, it was almost like drowning out, the people who were actually like constructively criticizing the
Yeah.
game, being
Yeah.
like, this isn't quite right. And I think the Skyline 6 was the first to sort of do that. Like the podcast that you did, I really liked that because, like we had issues with the game, we all did, and I think it was a way to finally sort of get those voices out there because then a lot of the other creators kind of did the same thing, and I think that finally was like a bit of a turning corner to finally move things forward and be like, okay, like and even with the game, like a lot of people are like it's failing, it's or whatever, but it was like from a creator perspective, like as sad as it is, then viewing numbers for CS1 are quite low. CS2 has been most of the growth in my channel, so it was just kind of like I was always a little confused. I'm like, wait, what do people want to see? Because
Same here. Yeah.
you yeah, like, and
Yeah.
I really love CS1 and I love doing what I do in it, and I really love CS2 and I really love what I'm doing in it. So I finally just decided, you know what? I was like, I'm just gonna do CS1 and CS2 content and just, enjoy the game, and the people who like the game for what it is will come watch, and those who don't, well, they may come watch and they may leave their opinions, but the great part is you can remove comments and
Yeah.
and yeah, I just tried to like roll with it because, again, like I've mentioned a few times, like the game means a lot to me, and maybe I'm a little more willing to turn a blind eye to issues, and I don't really think I did that. I just kind of worked around them because I was like, I know that this is a game that I think hopefully not in 8 years, but you can see you can see what they're capable of doing. So I think approaching the 1 year mark, we might be very surprised to see where the game is compared to the release back in October of last year. So
Yeah. Yeah. So sorry.
sorry,
Quickly,
long-winded.
no, fine. No, I just wanted to circle quickly back on you mentioned our like the Skyline 6 podcast episode was it was definitely one of the first in planning, but I think Cities by Diana got the ball rolling with the first video of what you said, like the content creators, like in air quotes, speaking out towards the issues at hand of the game. We definitely had the plan to make this the podcast episode, I think in like mid-January or something, and scheduling conflicts led to us recording, I think, end of February or something.
Right.
and I don't even remember when the episode dropped, in March, I think, or something. And so, like, yeah, we would have been definitely like the first, but Cities by Diana got that ball rolling, and that's like what is considered today as well, and that's okay. But yeah, agreed. Well, first of all, like the toxicity towards Colossal Order Paradox is just a no go. That's a given. Like there's no there's nothing that these like if you're being toxic towards the game developer, towards the publisher, that is not going to fix anything. And I just feel like some people just jumping on that, on that train to like, oh, I'm just going to say some stupid shit on the internet.
Yeah.
And yeah, and of course this this should not be like stuff like that should not be constructive criticism. Yes, which the
Yeah.
game, in my opinion, rightfully deserves, but
Yeah.
constructive criticism. The game, how the release was handled, the communication, maybe. But again, we don't, as you said, like people receiving death threats, even like we don't know. Like I don't know what like I'm not in those forums. Like I've read the word of the week every time, and of course I've seen some replies, but sometimes in the word of the week, I had to roll my eyes even. I was like, what are they, who wrote this? What are they doing? Like, but
Yeah.
again, as I said with the Skyline 6 in the podcast, like, and that's true. Like, I really want this to work. Like, I really want Cities 2 to be a success. It's just hard for me at this point. I still have some doubts. But the newest information that we got from Paradox and Colossal Order, the what was it called? The roadway, new road, new update. I don't know, something. The
The way
newest.
forward or something like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
the way forward. Yeah. That gave me hope. That gave me more hope than anything that they said before, honestly. And I even made a video on that because I agree. What they said is something that really gives like the silver lining on the horizon. I just hope that the actions will follow as well.
Yeah.
And I loved the acknowledgement in that. I loved the sincere apology. Like everything sounded, or it was written sincere. It seemed sincere to me. Like everything that was stated there. I love that they went a step backwards with the beach properties, because honestly, that's not $10. No, I'm sorry. That's not worth $10. 6 buildings, which you could only plop down once if you're not modded,
Yeah.
and yeah, and 4 trees and a new zone. So no, I'm sorry, that's not $10. But again, that's the past. It's in the base game now. I think that's a good step.
Yeah.
And I mean, even in the podcast episode with the Skyline 6, where we got super vocal about how we feel, I also, like, there was some comments, of course. And I mean, it gained some traction because we got a shout out from Biffa. The episode was mentioned by Biffa in his video. And so there was a lot of traffic from that, right? And of
Yeah.
course, we also got some, or it was on my channel, of course. I got some comments as well, like, oh, hypocrite, and it's like, why are you so late with saying, like, when I said something in the beginning, no one, and now you're all saying it too. And it's like, well, I wanted to give the game a chance. Like, I didn't say anything until I got like 100 hours in the game. There's people that complain about the game, and when you ask them, well, what's wrong with, well, oh, I didn't even have the game.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? What the, like,
Yeah.
you can't be this negative about something. Think of the release, what you want, and the communication from the developer and the and whatever, but you can't be like super negative and super vocal about something that you have not even experienced, that you have not even tried for yourself. Like, I got like 130 hours in the game now. I don't think I'm going to rack up so much more, but that's another different reason. I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast that I was never the simulation game type, and
Yeah.
I do feel like with my playing experience, with like over 100 hours, Cities 2 is leaning heavily into that simulation genre more than Cities Skylines 1, in my opinion. And that's why it's just not as fun for me as Cities Skylines. Like, I love the road tools, but if I'm honest, I can only build so many road layouts. And then it's like, and then it starts to get like just sort of tedious, and it's not too much fun for me. I don't really get how the zoning works, like, or not the zoning, but the demand, and
Mm.
it's just like but then everything that came before the release, like the overhyped marketing campaign, and I will call it overhyped because I mean that was the marketing campaign was out of this world. As we've already
Yeah.
stated, the trailer, the dev insight videos, dev diary videos leading up to the release, we getting to meet the development team. We're getting to see so many faces from Colossal Order. Everything was perfect up until the release. And like for me, even like I think 2 months earlier, I got 2 months early access. I was also allowed to create 3 videos prior to release, which
Yeah.
was which was honestly, it was rough getting through those 3 videos. It was really really tough for me. And I don't know if Joy took a break,
Yeah.
from content creation. I mean, IRL job things came there as well, but it just kind of like it was supposed to be this, it was supposed to be City Skylines 2, a finished game, but we got like something that was, there were performance issues, there were these bugs, there were that bugs, it didn't work as well for on top for me, that it was like, oh, this is, wow, this is like so simulation type, like it's not like, it's not like Cities 1. And then it was, I had a hard time getting through those 3 videos. I After the second one, I wanted to stop actually, and we had an amazing group. There were 4 of us, Joy, me, and 2 other creators, that we kind of motivated each other, and we also did like little shout outs in our videos for each other, which was really amazing. And thankfully we had that group, because that's what like sort of gave me an extra push to finish my final videos. And yeah, but I just think that Cities 2 didn't deliver on the overhyped marketing campaign. But again, I want this to work. I want this game to be successful, just because it's like, it's the it's the sequel to my beloved city building simulation. I love City Skylines.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just, I really want this to work. And it's interesting that you also mentioned like the views on Cities 2 are up, the views on Cities 1 are down. And you ask in your community tab, and people want to see Cities 2. And it's like, for me, then it's like, well, I mean, as a content creator, sometimes you have to do stuff that you're not too fond of. So, I still try to crank out some Cities 2 videos. I have a new one in the works at the moment, but it's not really like let's play or gameplay or building something really cool, because again, you're kind of limited, or I am kind of limited. I don't have like the creativity of like the user. I don't know if you know Sully, who created the water parks in City Skylines,
Oh
and
yeah, I saw.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like Sully is like, there's a video now where they created this elevated train station or something. It's like, how, wow, like I'm just not that creative. So, yeah, but again, in closing to this topic, I guess we can once again state that, all the toxicity is a no-go. Nobody should experience that for anything. Constructive criticism is always welcome. And I just went into the game for a couple of hours first before I started getting vocal about how I feel. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was what I think I didn't like about the game was that, or how do I put that? Not so much the game, but like that's what made it challenging was like to see a game that we all had such high hopes for, kind of like it was drowning a little bit there for a while. Like
Yeah.
I from what I've seen, it's gotten better. It's got a little bit of work to go in that sense, but it was hard because it was like I don't know me. I shared that disappointment with some people that like it wasn't the game that it was for them. Like I felt bad for the detailers because it was like, well, where are the props? Where are the trees?
Right.
Like
That's another thing. Yeah.
and like again, some of the little background mechanics, like I kind of liked the trees growing up a little bit, because it was cool to kind of like come back to an area of my city that I hadn't been in a while and see like, oh, like it's changed again. But again, that's just because it fits my style. But I knew for people like Joy, who really likes to see that like final finished picture rate as she builds it, it was really really hard. So it was just kind of like, I don't know, it was kind of sad because I saw this like CS1 community that was so great, and then when CS2 came out, like everything was so much more different. People were like getting into arguments, even in discords and all that kind of stuff. It was like, well, how could you like this game? It was like, well, like, and all this kind of stuff. And I think that was really what was more challenging for me, more than the game not really like functioning properly, was that
Right.
like, oh my goodness, like this like community that's been so like great, and it still is great, and that kind of stuff. Like once kind of the dust settled from that release, and that kind of stuff. But like yourself, like I want to see the game succeed, and I still personally think that there's hope for it. Again, kind of just like relating back to what I said with like CS1, like you kind of saw the final finished project of what it became, and again, hopefully not in 8 years, but I'm excited to see where this path forward is. But I think too, like a lot of people, will hold people accountable and be like, like we can't do this again. And I try not to sit there and try and like riddle through like, okay, whose fault is it or whatever. Like I have some thoughts about, how did we end up in this state, and why did we get a game that was overhyped, that wasn't ready, and why is it now taking, way longer than anyone sort of expected to get fixed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess for like how do I say, like in my world, and that kind of stuff, when we encounter problems or this kind of stuff, you just try and adapt every single time. And so that's what I've tried to do, at least with Cities, is try to adapt. And that's why I kept Cities 1 in my channel. And yeah, YouTube and algorithms kind of frustrating sometimes, and you try and sort of play the
Yeah.
game around it a little bit to see. And and I still plan on keeping Cities 1 on my channel for the time being, because
Mm.
there's no Airports DLC in Cities 2, so like
That's
yeah,
so true. Maybe it'll be a thing in the future. But yeah, that was also something what you mentioned about the community being like split up. I hated that, and I still hate that, honestly. There's people. It's not as bad now. It's kind of, as you said, the dust settled. That's kind of a good way to put it, because in the beginning, when the game just had released, it was I was always somebody that was defending the game, defending Colossal Order, Paradox, because again, I just thought like, okay, they got this, right? There's some issues, but they got this, right? And it was just really hard and frustrating, like every day, every single day, opening Discord and seeing people basically shitting on the game and on everybody that works at Colossal and Paradox, and then jumping in, trying to defend everything, saying, come on, you don't know, are you a game developer? No, you don't know what this means, you don't know what it takes, you don't know what happens behind the scenes, you don't know about deadlines, you don't, right? And it was
yeah,
just, yeah, it was just so exhausting too, to
yeah,
keep defending. And I just tried so hard to defend, and people, and then honestly, then word of the week, and then they said the infamous line about if you dislike the simulation, the game just might not be for you. And I'm like, I
yeah,
I'm defending you every single day, and you give me this crap, honestly. And then they took it out like a day later or 2 days later. It's like, what? Come on. Like, it's really hard to defend you guys if you like
yeah,
don't, and then it's like the biggest, and we're working on issues, and here we are. Oh, we fixed the stray dogs. I'm like, who cares about the stray freaking dogs, right? There's other more important things to fix. But yeah, it just got really frustrating over time defending the game, and to the part of the community, because I just can't have people go in and talk smack about City Skylines, even if it's one or two. It's the thing that I love, and I always felt very defensive about it,
yeah,
because yeah, I just want this to work. I want this to be successful. Now, thinking like, even if everything's fixed and everything works properly and they get back on track, I'm again still not sure if Cities 2 is the game for me, because of the how the mechanics are so fundamentally different. It just feels, and I've had this discussion on another Discord the other day. Cities 2 to me just feels so fundamentally different to Cities 1, which
Yeah.
first of all, I mean it's part 2, of course. There should be differences between part 1 and part 2, right? If it's too close to the first one, like, oh, there's nothing new. But for me personally, I feel like it's going to be a bit too far away of that City Skylines feeling. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm hoping. I'm still having high hopes for the game. I just thought, or I just think still that it released like a year too early. Like they needed another year of work putting into the game before they should have released it. And there's like another thing. Why were the mods not ready? Why were the PDX mods not ready? If you go the route of no Steam Workshop, I don't care, honestly. Like I didn't get why some people were like, "Oh my god, no Steam Workshop. I'm never buying this game." I'm like, "Huh? Why?
Yeah.
What? I don't care if it's PDX mods or Steam Workshop or whatever workshop. I don't care." But if you have something, the mods that made City Skylines the most successful city builder ever, is big part because of the modding community, the mods and assets, the Steam Workshop. If your mods are not ready, then your game's not ready. And like I had that discussion with on the podcast with Move the Mouse as well, who said these exact same words. So I don't want to take credit for those words, but I just feel them so 100%. If if the mods are not ready, your game's not ready. They shouldn't have released the game without the mods, which I think that's just that's just there's some stuff that just fueled the fire. Obviously, again, no toxicity, but even like the split up community of people like really disliking and being super vocal, and as you said, like asking people, how can you like this game? Like that's not okay. But I do get where the frustration comes from. I do get it, because at some point I had a hard time defending the game and the devs and the publisher, and with like each word of the week, it just felt like it's harder and harder to defend the game. But I just kept trying, and if people want to see Cities 2, I'm probably still going to create videos about it, but probably not like this. Oh, look at this beautiful build landscape, whatever. I'm going to create like what I did. I'm recreating Squid Game in City Skylines 2, or like building Pillar City or the highest city ever and stuff like that. But just like a 2-hour recording session and then a 2-hour editing session, and that's it. Probably. I may not be doing a series on Cities 2. I mean, who knows, right? Never say never, but first of all, I hope with the way the road, I can't know what
The way forward.
the way forward. Thank you. I cannot get that into my head. I am cautiously optimistic looking into the future for the way forward with City Skylines 2, and we'll see what it brings.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so Pilot, we've been recording for almost an hour and a half, but I do have one more question for you.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about some of your future content plans for City Skylines 2?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I guess this is what happens when two passionate city players get together and start talking about the game. But yeah, so currently I'm running two series kind of on my channel. My first city, Properton, which I think is reaching somewhat the end of its lifespan, I think. Like, I'm really proud of the city, but it being the first one, like, sometimes I look back at it, I'm like, oh, I would do so much so different knowing what I know about the game now. And it's changed a lot since October. Like, we went from between the bugs and how I built the city then, and then they fixed a bug and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, won't get on to that topic too long, but yeah, so I'll continue Properton probably for the next little bit here. I'm kind of waiting to see, unfortunately, TVA, I guess, with asset mods, if that is coming. I think probably at that point I would start a new city. I've kind of got one planned-ish, anyways,
Okay.
of what I'd like to do there. And then, yeah, the other thing I'm working on right now is the collab with Brad Play Cities, and we're gonna keep working on that one for the foreseeable future, passing it kind of back and forth. it sort of replaces my city when it's my turn. Just with my work schedule, I can't crank out content like Brad can, so I have to adjust my release schedule. Future hopes, I guess, for content would probably dive into some of the tutorial stuff. I really wanted to do that initially, but I found it was so hard um, with the game in its state that it was to
Right.
kind of create a tutorial because I'm like, I don't know if what I'm doing to fix this is fixing a bug or if this is actually how the game is supposed to respond.
Yeah.
Like, there is unfortunately still those economy and other issues that aren't quite fixed yet. So, and the one nice thing, at least with mods, is I've kind of transitioned Properton from vanilla into a modded build. So we're just kind of diving into that. Like, what can we do with mods in this city? And I think eventually I'd love to start like a fully modded. Oops, sorry, hit the mic again. Hand talker. Yeah, I'd like to dive into a more of a modded city, I think, and just kind of see, okay, how does CS2 vanilla compare to CS2 modded? How is that different than Cities 1? I have debated, and this is a Flyvox exclusive, so you're welcome. Diving back into Xbox content, maybe
Oh.
with the release. So there it is. You heard it first on Flybox podcast. No guarantees though, so no one hold it to me. Like, it's really schedule dependent. But if the console version does kind of show up in a good state, I'd be really curious to kind of do a comparison. Of, hey, I played City Skylines on the Xbox to start with. How is it starting out on City Skylines 2 on the Xbox as well? So yeah, that's kind of the plan going forward. I think largely this will depend on the developer and the publisher at this point. How they release stuff, and once the game's kind of in the state that it hopefully should be, which I'm hoping not too much longer. But yeah, I think that's the plan for now.
That sounds really amazing. I'm looking forward to the console comparison. That's really, really interesting. And you heard it here first. Very nice. All right, Pilot, it has been a blast chatting with you. Thank you so much for being on the show. Really, really appreciated.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been so great, like I said earlier, to do these collabs and get to talk to other creators and that kind of stuff and really dive into the community. So I was very very happy to be invited as a guest. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, awesome, awesome. Okay, tell everybody, where can we find you? Your Pilot Build Cities on YouTube, is that right?
Yes, and Instagram is there as well. I kind of forget about it sometimes. Sorry, Instagram. And then I have a Discord server as well. That it's kind of quiet these days, but yeah, you can find me on Discord as well. So, and I'm also hanging out with a lot of people on other ones. I'm in the City of Friends Discord as well. So, I'm always around if anyone ever wants to talk airports as well. So, yeah, you can find me in a lot of places.
Super awesome. And all of these places will be linked in the description of this YouTube video. So everyone out there, thank you so much for watching, for listening. Really, really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day, and please stay safe out there. Bye-bye.
Bye.